Hello friends, I'm Matthew Dinar and this is The Corporate Pastor, a platform dedicated to helping pastors and church leaders bringing practical leadership coaching to their passion and to their purpose. If you want to know more about me and my why, I'd encourage you to go check out my introduction video. In this video series, my goal is to bring hope to the leadership capability in you and in your ministry. This particular video is about growth. It's about preparing for growth, not planning for it. It might be even a bit provocative to some at times. So let's jump right in. First thing I want you to do is clasp your hands. When you look at your hands clasped, is your right thumb on the top or is your left thumb on top? Because they say that individuals with their right thumb on top are resistant to change. No, I'm just kidding. That's really not the case. I just wanted to drive the point home that a lot of times we do things that we don't even realize or we don't even think about. Switch your hands now and see how it feels. Feels weird, doesn't it? We settle into habits and we don't shift our hands enough to grow in life. We don't get uncomfortable. So many churches today are so heavily focused on developing growth strategies. And I'm not here to provide feedback for those churches or even say they're wrong. I don't think that at all. What I do know is that many times we take our eyes off the source for growth. We all know who that is. We spend so much time strategizing how to grow. If we did this, if we changed this, if we changed that, maybe more people would come. If this were different, maybe we would grow. Let me challenge you today with a different way of thinking. What if I said you don't need a growth strategy, you need a strategy for growth? The difference in those two statements are the source for growth. A growth strategy is focused on us. A strategy for handling growth is focused on Him. It's God's job to expand your territory as you honor Him and what He's asked you to be faithful to. We just need to make sure we're ready for it. God is the greatest example of leadership, and just like with you and your own staff, you will give more to the individuals that are prepared to handle it and steward it effectively. It's like money in the bank. If you don't have the discipline to get there, you're not going to have the discipline to stay there. If you can't be faithful in the small things, you're going to struggle to be faithful in the big things. I like to say it this way: more is not necessarily better, but more is definitely more. Getting more when you aren't prepared for it can turn your wishes into a weight. It's kind of like outgrowing your clothes and they don't fit anymore, or growing your muscles with a new exercise routine and the muscles are sore when you first start. Both of those are growth, but they both come with pain. One is healthy, one is not. The key is learning how to grow out of necessity, not desire. We quickly outgrew the two buildings we had as our church was exploding. We definitely needed a new building from the little country church we started in that only seated about 50 people at most. When we outgrew the second building, just a few short years later after it was built, we had aspirations for yet another building, a bigger building. The second building program was the beginning of the end for our church. The pressure it put on the staff, the pressure it put on our finances, started the clock for the beginning of the end of the ministry. I can't help but think now that I look back 20 years later, after that experience, things might be different if we just stayed in the second building and gone to multiple services. Multiple services are a burden on a pastor and the staff, but we needed to compare that burden to the one we took on with a significant building program. You need to grow out of necessity, not out of desire. You need to make absolutely sure you are prepared to expand your borders, and the wisest way to do it. You know, I did a leadership training from 1 Chronicles 4:10 on Jabez as our church prepared to expand to a second campus. And I plan to create a video in the future to demonstrate that training for you as well. It's so important that you are prepared to expand your borders, not just strategy on how to do it. I'm not just talking about church growth programs. It could be adding more programs and ministries at your church today. Could be taking on more responsibilities for you personally. Churches fall into the trap of having more ideas than they have execution. Which ideas are going to have the biggest impact to move your vision forward? I love what a pastor friend of ours, Andrea Hill, says: stay in God's will, not in His way, but grow. Don't stand still. Don't get complacent. We need to keep growing, keep progressing the church and reaching the lost. But to do this, you got to do it in His will. An important part of this process is enjoying the journey as well. Don't get focused on the future that you aren't enjoying and making most of today. You know, I started the company as an hourly employee in IT, information technologies and computers, which translated to manufacturing, and then from manufacturing to HR, which is where I ultimately wanted to be, obviously as a corporate pastor. Every step orchestrated by God was a preparation for the next step. I wouldn't be where I am today if I hadn't had the learnings and the opportunities from that hourly job in IT 32 years ago. Success is full of steps. It's very rarely on an elevator. You need to do the work step by step, learning and growing and experiencing. If you take the elevator, it will not be sustainable because you didn't build what was necessary along the way, which is the learnings and the experience. You really need to enjoy the journey of the beautiful things that God is teaching you and you're learning in this season, the things necessary that He's preparing you for more later. You know, you can't be a general if you haven't been through war. Experience is absolutely the best teacher. I like to think about it in a toolbox analogy. You get a screwdriver, you learn how to use a screwdriver, now you can turn screws. You get a hammer, now you know how to work with nails. You get a saw, now you know how to cut wood. As you learn to use more tools, and as you learn and get more experiences, you can build more things. You need to be great at what you have and then ask for more so that you can do more. Don't ask for more until you're ready. To be an impactful leader, you've got to bring people on this journey with you. You got to grow the others around you, plant the seeds necessary in them to grow. You know, I talked earlier about Pastor Andrea Hill. Her husband, Pastor Darian Hill, you know, he likes to say that the seeds that leave our hands and never leave our lives. So as you're investing in others, as you're growing your staff, as you're planting those seeds, it's not leaving your life. You're growing all of that together. I've always said that so many people have poured into my life. If I didn't do the same for others, I'd be selfish. That's why I'm here. That's why I've created the Corporate Pastor. I am here to walk it out with you in every way that I can. You can reach me at thecorporatepastor@gmail.com. I'm so grateful for what you're doing. Thank you so much for what you're doing for God, for the body of Christ, and for the lost. Until then, I pray peace, purpose, potential, and prosperity over you and your ministry. Be blessed and be a blessing.